Hey yo, people, Shaxo here once again, and welcome to my Feet Enjoyer hideout. Okay, that's a joke, but welcome to a new video, and this is a video about Rage Brand 2.0, where we have the Mage Blood, and we have some changes to the build, we have more movement speed, more damage, all the good stuff, right? I'll try to go through and over as much of the things that we need to, well, I'll go through everything that we need to cover, but I'll try to do it as quickly as possible, and then I'll show you a map showcase because, you know, you want to see that probably, obviously, and then I'll run also an Uber Eater invitation, pretty juicy, 71 command, nothing crazy, but yeah. So first thing that I want to cover is the Silver Flask with Mage Blood, right? So not everyone knows this, but I think it was since this league that they changed this. That increased effect on the flask now increases the onslaught effect. Right now it's a buff that you can scale with increased effect, so instead of 20 movement speed, attacking cast speed, you get nearly double the effect. The next thing that we need to cover is the reduced mana cost of skills. So I have this on a flask, and it allowed me to drop anomalous increased duration support. It opened up a gem socket, and it allowed me to drop 3 points here, drop this mastery. Also, it allowed me to change my Militant Faith into more damage instead of reduced cost of skills per devotion, right? So that is pretty significant. Right, next thing, we have resistance capping through Mage Blood. Obviously, that's one of the benefits of Mage Blood, and it is a very, very welcome thing because, you know, now I'm finally decently res overcapped and I can run my altars and not die after taking one. And I have been not dying, actively not dying. It feels good, right? And then the last flask, we had Progenesis previously without a Mage Blood. I mean, it's so good that you probably kind of, if you really don't want to die or die as least as possible, you could run a 3 flask Mage Blood or a 4 flask, and you know, while mapping use this, while not mapping do something else. But it's a really good flask, which is why, you know, you could consider that. But I chose to go for maximum movement speed, maximum goodness, and this also gives me a bunch of chaos res. We get increased effect, right? And then we get movement speed. And as you can see, I'm pretty much chaos res capped against damage over time, so it feels really, really, really good. One thing that I have to say is that I have, well, for the no-hit runs in Sanctums, I have a little bit too much movement speed, so what I was doing was I was swapping my Quicksilver into a Sulfur Flask, right? Get a little bit more damage and a little bit less speed. Also, I was dropping my Chaos Resist Flask with movement speed into just crit, Diamond Flask with crit for better crit, better freezing, and stuff like that, right? So that's something that I was swapping, but that's pretty much just for the no-hit runs. Normally in Sanctums you don't really need that. You just swap the Exploding Flask to have damage on bosses to literally just insta-phase everything. Right, that out of the way. One thing, so speaking of movement speed, why I say it's a little bit too much, as you can see in the mapping setup, I have 600 movement speed. I don't have that quite yet because I don't have my Mage Blood with movement speed corruption. But even without that, right, we're sitting at 584 movement speed, which is really, really, really nice, right? It's not always there because, you know, the way that Elusive works, that it gives you the maximum effect and then it slowly, gradually drops to 0, and then it resets at 100 efficiency and then drops slowly again. So there's that, right? But it's really, really, really good. It feels really, really nice. And let's move on to the next thing. And the next thing that I want to cover is freeze and chill and stuff like that. The boots, basically, right? So as you can see, my boots are really, 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 really freaking good. And these are really hard to craft. The suffixes, right? The suffixes with life regeneration rate, it's a nightmare to craft. I've been asked multiple times, how do you craft these? And it's a nightmare to craft. There are so many fail states, so many, and it's also so RNG to get the life regeneration rate. So if you can buy this combination for suffixes, just do that. If you have to go for non-elevated tailwind while crafting these, it's totally fine. You lose just a few movement speed percent if you don't go with effect of tailwind, right? Because action speed doesn't really increase our damage because the way of Stormbrand, how it works, we get better like cast time, lower cast time of the brand, but not increasing the cast rate of the brand itself with the action speed, right? Because it's an action that brand performs, not me, right? The active damage dealing part, right? So it's just for movement speed. Action speed is just for movement speed, which means that we can actually sacrifice the elevated tailwind, and then you could do it a lot cheaper, right? Because how you have to do this is you have to Awaken Orb, Tailwind, and Elevated Onslaught, mash them together with an Awakener's Orb, right? And then you're praying for an open suffix. If you get that, then you do suffixes cannot be changed to lock in the Elevated Mod and Tailwind, and then Reforge Life and pray that you hit Life Regeneration rate. You can hit a Life Regen flat, which is way worse. You can hit low tiers, you can hit life on the prefix and then fill up the suffix. It's a nightmare to craft these boots. I would not recommend, but if you really have to, that's how you get them, right? And then suffixes cannot be changed. Reforge crit for elusive. Suffixes cannot be changed. Ashling Slam, hopefully not remove the elusive. Block mana, unveil movement speed. And whichever you get is what you get, and I wouldn't recommend going again, because doing that, you could break the boots, right? With Reforge crit, you could fill up the prefixes, and then you have to null, and you can annul the elevated mod or tailwind. It's basically, as I said, it's a nightmare to craft, but if you can get these boots, it's amazing. And as you can see, the difference from my boots that I had in the previous setup was that I am not running chill avoidance anymore, but I do still have freeze avoidance, right? So this is important, okay? I got this not on these pair of boots, but I had a slightly worse version of these boots before, and I crafted the prefixes myself, and I unveiled this same movement speed if you haven't been hit recently, right? I didn't have the chill avoidance. Basically, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get chilled sometimes, it's fine, we are so speedy that it wouldn't really matter that much, right? And then freeze is important. But the thing is, we can use this, Wrapped in Flame, increased fire damage, cannot be chilled while burning, and chance to cover enemies in ash on hit while you're burning. So initially, my build was not using a heat shiver, which means that this was a completely useless use of points, except for the chill immunity, which is technically, I mean, it's good, but you know, you're not getting any damage, you're sacrificing points and stuff. It wasn't really something that I even thought about using because it's not efficient. However, now that we're using Heat Shiver, more than half of my damage is fire, which means that this is actually really, really beneficial. So this is how we get the chill immunity, freeze immunity on the craft, and then whatever you get on the movement speed unveil, right? It doesn't matter as much anymore, right? You don't need a specific mod, which makes crafting these a little bit nicer, a little bit more accessible, and a bit more tolerable. What else? Okay, so the body armor. Okay. So this is where it gets expensive even further, even though I was using this before, but basically, yeah, Forbidden, Flame, and Flesh, Conviction of Power. I was using this and I was telling people that primarily this is just +1 power charge, and then it's a little bit of physical damage reduction, which is nice, but it's whatever. And then it's a little bit of resistances, which is nice to, you know, have a better time capping your resistances. However, now this becomes 300 life regen because we're using the Restless Ward. 75 life regenerated per second per endurance charge. This is huge for the rage regen build, right? This is a very nice access to regen, especially since we have to drop the belt with a bunch of regen, right? But if you're using this body armor, you're actually not losing. Well, you might be still losing a little bit because you can have 400 on the belt, but yeah, you're pretty much not losing regen anymore, so this is nice. And then there's another mod here, as you can see, 4% increased movement speed per frenzy charge. Previously, I was not using frenzy charges, and it is, like, you know, a lot easier to not use frenzy charges because you can do different setups on budget and stuff like that. But Badge of the Brotherhood, since I have 10 power charges, now I have access to 10 frenzy charges, which means that we get 40% movement speed from the body armor, and you know, well, yeah, pretty much from the body armor, because this doesn't give you movement speed inherently. But this also gives us elusive effect, which is why you want these boots when you're going into the Badge of the Brotherhood setup, because you want to get elusive. This is the only source of elusive, so you really, really want this. Right, like at least elusive. I mean, technically you could get just elusive, but you would still be losing a lot of movement speed. But you could just get elusive, right? As a budget option, you could just get elusive boots with veil movement speed and avoid being frozen, and then just regen on the suffixes, you would be losing a lot of movement speed, like 50% or something like that. But it would be way cheaper and easier to get, right? So, okay, there's that. That is covered. So, how do we generate frenzies? Anomalous Blood Rage. We are using the alt tech. You know, it's not really reliable on some builds, but in this case, it's completely fine. So we get 25 chance to gain a frenzy on kill, and then buff grants 2% chance to gain a frenzy when you hit a unique enemy. So if you're not hitting frequently, this is pretty bad, and this is very hard to generate frenzies and even keep them up on single target. But when we're hitting 25-ish times per second on the boss, yeah, this is fine. Also, in Sanctums, one thing that I change is that I actually spec into Inner Conviction, which prevents me from generating frenzy charges. However, we get so much damage, right? It's literally 30% more spell damage. So it's 30% more damage on single target, which we really want because this is like, you know, it's a lot of damage. So how do you get frenzies then? Well, the only scenario where I'm actually doing this is either if I'm doing Uber bosses or if I'm doing no-hit Sanctum runs. And if you're doing no-hit Sanctum runs, this is what you do every zone, pretty much, right? Just click, you get 20 seconds. If you really want to increase that duration, you could change this mastery into 100% increased charge duration, use like 6%, 7% damage, but, you know, that becomes 30 seconds, and you have a lot nicer. Basically, more time. Okay, yeah, just more time. It's good. The next thing is the enchant. Okay, so Heat Shiver with Berserk reduced rage loss per second. It is absolutely huge because it nearly doubles my Berserk uptime, and it is huge because, you know, when you have Berserk, you are way less likely to get one shot or die in general. You have way more movement speed. Like, it's crazy good how good it is in terms of movement speed, and just it's just also you get bigger, so you know, size matters. Anyway, get that. So if you don't have access to just buying it, then you could just buy the implicit power charge. If you can get the regen as well, it's really good. But basically just +1 power charge base, get that, and then run some labs yourself. If you're lucky, you can get it. If not, then just go to TFT services, get a helmet enchant service, and it's like 4 divines. It's really not expensive. It's like the cheapest one because almost no one is running this enchant, but it is really good for this kind of a build where you're relying on Berserk to get your zoomies and actually get like 13% more damage, I believe. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. This enchant is huge. So like for Blade Vortex, right, when I was playing Rage BV, you have the duration enchant, which makes Blade Vortex just feel so much nicer, right? So then you kind of want to get that, but honestly, I would still get this. This is so good. When you have Berserk, the build is good. When you don't, the build is like half as good. So yeah, it's important. Okay, so the passive tree. This is currently my no-hit run setup, pretty much, except for a few masteries and the Inner Conviction, right? So one thing that I changed, which is actually really important, you don't need this, but this is very high quality of life and safety. Brand equity. It gives you 2 additional brands, which means that you can cover more ground, right? You have 7 brands, and it does give you a little bit of duration, but duration is not really necessary. It's not needed. Where it matters is in the laser rooms, right? In the laser rooms where you have to run in a circle, you can have your brands cover the whole circle, and as soon as guards spawn, they just get instantly killed, pretty much, right? If you position them correctly, if you don't spam them like this. If you spam them in front of yourself, which I was doing for a while, you don't get the benefit, right? But if you do some pauses between casts, it's really impactful and really strong. This mastery, brand attached to new enemies every time they activate, it is also very nice, very important. Not that it's important, but it increases your clear by a lot if you don't have the Exploding Flask. I would recommend getting this Exploding Flask. You get this, you can use it in pretty much any build for the rest of the league, so it is a huge investment, but it is a very nice investment, right? Currently this flask is what, 27-30 divines, right? It's worth it. It's really, really worth it. Some people had issues with freezing bosses and then the damage felt lackluster, right? So one way you fix this, and I wasn't using this for the entirety of my character, but now I know that it's a good thing to use. Basically, get freeze duration on enemies mastery, right? Called mastery. So there's anomalous hatred that can give you 10%, and then there's this mastery. It's not even that bad to grab this in terms of damage. Effective cold ailment doesn't matter because it's not scaling your freeze, it's only scaling your chill, but your chill is already at max, so it doesn't matter. But this allows you to freeze uber bosses and all the map bosses way easier and with lower damage. So this is very important. Should get this. What else is left? For the passive tree, I mean, nothing really changed. I'll obviously have a POB with the default settings. Where we have the mapping setup, which is default, and then the no-hit run setup. And then there's also an omega damage version, right? So this is something that I came up with. Okay, I was meant to be looking at budget options and alternatives, but I ended up looking at omega non-budget options. And okay, let me just quickly put it on and just look at the freaking number. Wait, so if we go into the calculations, shock effect, pinnacle 29 shock, currently we have 19, so if we put in 29, look at that number. What is this number? Do you realize how much damage this is? This is 3 billion damage. Nothing survives this, okay? Nothing. And this is, you know, this is the final form of the build if you would make this into a boss killer. 3 billion, and I might go for this, right? I might go for this. I'm not really a big bossing guy. I prefer blasting maps and stuff, but you know, even if I manage to reach 2 billion damage, it's insane. It's absolutely insane, right? But it does require some cracked corruptions everywhere, and this body armor. Honestly, this body armor is nuts. Dial's Malefaction with +3, or +4 technically, and then correct colors for your setup. It's nuts. It's wild. It could actually be even more, but this is with 2 mirrored ones and stuff like that. It's really cool. The possibilities there, right? But this is, yeah, purely single target. This is not something that I would recommend people do, but everything else, all the others, right? The default, the no-hit run setups, I can recommend. It feels really nice. And okay, so enough of feeling nice, and maybe it's time to show, because I think I covered pretty much everything that is important to cover and that's needed to cover. Yep, nothing else changed. So let's just log in, put in Nico so I don't get any other masters. ATOL, right? Nothing crazy, it's just an ATOL. And let's see what we have here. How does it look for mapping? So what I do in every map, I have these buttons, Q, E, and A. Basically, right, the Blessing, the Righteous Fire, and the Blood Rage. I pop that, and then we're good to go. Right, we're good to go. And yeah. You know, you don't even need the movement skills. It's really nice. It's really nice. It is really nice. And just the blaster. Yep. Feels good. Feels good. Right? It's pretty nice. Clear is pretty good. Single target is pretty good. Speed is pretty good. And I didn't even use my lightning warp properly. Like if you have enough damage, technically you could just one-shot everything with lightning warp, right? But yeah. So now let's log into the Uber Eater. As you can see, I have Uber selected, and so for Uber Eater, right, we do want to change a few things. We don't need the chain, and we don't need that. Also, we don't need those points, but I'll just keep it whatever. Just save some time, get the effect, and boom. Right. So for single target, just want to do the booty swaps. Also, right, okay, wait. A few more things. We want to change the auras. We want to become ZHP but Giga DPS setup, right? We don't need the movement speed, so I actually don't need this. We don't need that as well. Let's just go for this. Yep. Yep. Yep, yep, yep. So we do the booty swaps. And he's dead. So, right, you know, like... It's pretty nice. So yeah, that's the build. It feels pretty nice to play. It is performing very nicely. I'm very happy with how it's performing for the no-hit runs, for the sanctums, for the map blasting, for the boss killing. It's not one-shotting bosses, you know, uber bosses just yet, but if I go for the Project 3 billion, it would be, because this is, okay, so how much damage is this? Technically, this is, if we go for the no-hit run, because that's my full damage setup right now, we are looking at, we go back to 19 shock. We're looking at 381. Actually, the shock would be lower because over pinnacle bosses calculations, the shock is 11 shock. So it's 100 million damage on Ubers, which is really good still, right? It's really, really good. It's really good. It's really good. Yeah, that's the build though. That's it. That's the video. This is my new hideout, by the way. It's very cool, very cool. And one thing that I was working on, why this video took so long, is because I dismantled the build and I made a 600 plus movement speed Winter Orb Inquisitor, and I was playing that build. So I got distracted because it felt, oh my god, it felt so nice. It does feel so nice because you just run, right? You just, yeah. Anyway, all right, catch you in the next one. Maybe I'll make a video about the Winter Orb build because it's also very, very fun to just map blast. It has way less damage, but you know, it has the run and explode everything. We have AoE scaling, a lot of movement speed and projectiles and stuff, and good damage, just like 50 mil. Anyway, that's a different build for a different video, so I hope to catch you in the next one, and stay safe, guys, stay awesome, and bye-bye.